Hi guys, Steve Woody here. Welcome to Website Wednesday. Today we're going to be talking about website security, and this has been really because there's been a lot of talk in the press recently about big companies that have been getting exposed and hacked, and it makes you realize that if a massive company like Google or brands in the world who pay a lot of money to make sure that their IT infrastructure is secure, if they're getting hacked, then what chance have the little guys got? What chance have people like me and you as a small business owner? What chance have we got of protecting ourselves? So it's really important for me that we manage to, more than anything, protect ourselves the best that we can. And I'm going to run through that today. I'm going to teach you about 3 different areas, because a lot of people think website security is just about your website. It's not. The website is such a small part of the security. And there are 3 actual elements that you need to consider, and we're going to go through those in a little bit more detail. But by the end of this, you have a bit of a better understanding. As you can see, if you're following me on any of the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, anywhere like that, you'll see this whole week has been geared around security. I wrote a blog article, I'm doing a webinar, we're having a theme for the week, and the theme is security. So hopefully at the end of this webinar, you'll at least have the resources to have a look around out this week and get a better understanding of the security aspects, and just to have a bit more of awareness about security, especially of your website. So 3 things to consider when you're looking at security. And the first of those is your computer. Now, I'll briefly touch on what all 3 of them are, and then we'll go into each detail. But the first of them is your computer. The second is your server. And the third is your website. Now, let me break that down and let's go back a step. When I say your computer, the reason that I mention that is because to access your website, you need to access it via a computer. And it may be your computer, it may be someone else's computer, but if there is a virus on that computer, then there is it's like having a cold. If you've got a cold and you sneeze on someone, chances are you may give that person the cold. They're immune, or unless they've got a really good immune system, chances are if you've got a cold and you sneeze on someone, you'll give that person a cold. So if you've got a virus on your computer and you log on to your website, but you could put your virus from your computer onto your website. So it's important to make sure that the computer you're using is protected. Now, there are obviously lots of different operating systems out there and different things you can do, but for my target audience and the people that I assume to be watching this video, you'll be using one of 2 operating systems. You're either going to be using Windows or you're going to be using a Mac. Now, I myself use a Mac, and just because you're on a Mac, automatically make you viruses and malware and Trojans. You still need to be protected. Whole perception that if you're on a Windows, you need to be protected. If you're on a Mac, you don't need to worry. You do. If you're on a Windows computer, operating system, there's a lot of different software packages that you could use. One of them that we see advertised everywhere is Norton. Everyone talks about Norton antivirus and Norton internet security, and I'm here to tell you that internet security is not something you have to pay for. Okay, it's available and it's free. And I believe that it's something that should be free, because that level of protection that we want, yes, I appreciate that we can donate and we can pay for the services if we want additional things, but that basic level of protection, I feel that we should, companies out there that are creating sort of things on the internet, they've got a duty of people. So there are systems out there, and one of them, the best known in the world, one of the best known, is called AVG. So if you're on a Windows machine, you can go and you can get AVG security. This is a free program for personal use. You have to pay if you're a business user. For personal use, you can get the free version, install it on your Windows machine, and you're now going to have an antivirus database that's going to protect you against some of the well-known viruses that are out there. So I'd suggest install that and run that program. That is just going to do the antivirus. You still need a firewall. So I would recommend you use Zone Alarm. Zone Alarm is a free version. So AVG for your antivirus, Alarm for your firewall, and together that will give your computer a level of security that you wouldn't have just using Windows. If you're using, then you can pretty much guarantee that if I'm going to write a virus and I'm going to attack a Windows-based operating system, I'm going to automatically bypass the Windows firewall. It's one of those things where you're going to create it to automatically do. Yes, Windows Firewall is a bit of protection, but it's really more of a gimmick than anything else, and you want to make sure you're protected by a well-known brand such as AVG, Norton if you want to use it and you want to pay for the privilege, and obviously, as I've just mentioned, Zone Alarm. If you're on a Mac, then I would download the antivirus program called ClamAV. ClamAV is something I've been using on my servers, on my VPS and my hybrid systems for a long time. It's a great antivirus bit of software, and you can run that on your Mac. It's free to download and test your computer. So that's the computer side of it. Now we know that our computer is, well, hopefully as secure as it can be. And there's obviously other programs that you can use to test your machine if it's been infected. Malwarebytes is a great one for that. And there's other systems out there. I'm not going to go into all the different systems. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is to make sure that you have some protection on your computer and that you understand that if you are infected, you need to rectify that. I wouldn't be connecting to your website if you've got an infection. You may transfer that infection. Okay, so the second part that I mentioned, we've done websites now. The second part is the server. So to make sure that your server is secure. And that comes down to really two things. One, the actual security of the server itself. And two is the way that you connect to the server. Okay, so when you connect to the server, and I really want you to start thinking about this in terms of data. When you're using Wi-Fi, okay, the reason that Wi-Fi works is because your data is sent across the airwaves. It has to go from your machine, it goes through the air to the router or the modem or to whatever point of access point it is using. And between point A and your machine and the server, there is a chance it could be intercepted anywhere along that line. If somebody has, and I'll give you a great example of this, Wi-Fi, personal Wi-Fi spots. You know, you can be really, really careful when you're using personal Wi-Fi because you never know who's listening in. You never know who could be snooping around. I'll give you a great example. There's a box called Pineapple. Pineapple is a way of setting up a free network so you can appear to be a free network with a login screen, put your details in to get free access. That person now has your information, your login information. They maybe have your email address, they may have a password that you use. Okay, they can then use keylogin so that every time you type something in on your website or on your laptop, they're getting access to that. So if you visit a site, they get a log of every site you visited, and they're using a keylogger to see what keys you type on which site. You're compromised in seconds. You've got to be really careful when you're using some of these free and public Wi-Fis. Okay, just be aware and be conscious when you're doing that. Also, when you do transfer files from your computer to your website, a lot of people use what's called FTP. FTP is called File Transfer Protocol, and it stands for a way to send files from your computer to your server. Okay, FTP is a really bad practice, and you should not use it. If you're going to use that, you should use what's called SFTP. SFTP is Secure File Transfer Protocol, and it encrypts the files as they're sent. Okay, and any good host will give you access to SFTP. You should have that. Okay, that should. So when you're considering your server, consider how you connect to the server. If you do have to connect, just don't stay connected. I know people that connect and leave their computer connected all the time. Okay, connect, upload the files, and disconnect. Only stay connected for the amount of time you need. Okay, like if you're going to log into an admin, only log in for as. If you're going to log into a website as an admin user, only log in for as long as you need. When you finish, log out. Okay, make sure, get into the habit of logging out of systems, because if you stay logged in, it just gives somebody that little bit of an extra gap to sort of jump in to hijack your account, and you don't really want to deal with the whole cleanup. Okay, if we can stop this before it happens, by better practices, great. If you're going to use public Wi-Fi, or in fact, if you're going to, I would recommend you use what is called a proxy. It is a way of hiding identity online so that you, and I use one called Hide My Arse. If you go to AWS, hidemyass.com, that is a proxy server that I use. Connected on my machine. It simply the background lets me connect to an IP. I mean, whether I'm in a great way to protect yourself, okay, from information about you don't want them to find out. So I always use a proxy. Where, point to note that if you are using a proxy, bank account frozen, logging into proxy, their equipment picked up that people were logging into my website or to my account. So just be aware, if you're logging in from various different IPs around the world using a proxy, systems like banking systems, they can be a little bit temperamental. You know, just be aware of. So we've now got our proxy in place. We've got our secure FTP. We know our computer's clean. But what about the server itself? If you're using one of these $1 a month hosting options, chances are you're not going to be as secure as you are whether you're using something that you know, protection. Okay, if I've got a server and I'm charging, then I'm not really interested in my time to make sure you're secure. Okay, if you're only paying me $1 a month, there's not really an incentive there for me to want to spend you. Also, I'm not going to really have the money to put the resources in place. When you think that servers out there, and when you look at like the dedicated servers that I'm using, £1 a month, when you look at that cost compared to paying $1 a month, that's a different system you've got set up, different resources that are available, different software that can implement different things within the server to allow it to do different things, and also a better knowledge, a better team behind it to manage it, to make sure that it runs smooth. If you're on a $1 a month hosting option, I don't care how good your website is. You can have Fort Knox installed on your website. If your server crashes, your website is only as good as your server. So ultimately, we can talk about your computer, we can talk about your website, but your server must be protected. And the first thing I can say to you is that if you're on cheap hosting solutions at $1 a month, then you're not going to be protected to the best of the ability of what is available. Okay, and you owe it to yourself to have that level of protection. I'd start at a very, very mindset of looking at hosting costs at an absolute minimum £5 a month. My cloud hosting that I offer at £5 a month, I mean, that does cover levels of security and it does give a lot of protection. But I'd also say that £10 a month option, you're going to get a lot more for your money. You know, if you look at the different hosting options, there's so many different options. It comes up time and time again, and we've covered this. We've covered it in blogs. You know, I'm not going to go into all the different hosting providers out there, but just be aware that the hosting, make sure that they implement good practice, good security. Okay, but the reason that be able to do this, and I say sorry, and I have to be aware that when I'm using a cloud server solution you have in place for some clients, when they're using that solution, to give one person could then jeopardize all the other websites. So make sure that people aren't just getting rammed onto a server, because you want to make sure you can. The other thing that I would say is that when you have your server in place, make sure, as I've already mentioned, when you connect to the server, you connect for as long as necessary, then you leave, you connect, you upload, disconnect. Also make sure that you have backups in place, so that if something does go wrong, that you know that you can back up your site and you can always use a restore point. Server level backups are integral to any good hosting provider. They will provide that. Have daily, ideally daily, if not weekly backups in place for your website. The third thing, we've covered computers. The third thing to look at is going to be the website itself. Be able to protect your website. So maybe you don't know if you're, so you need to have a look. So you want to check just to make sure that you are clean and your computer's not infected. So some of the tools that I'm going to offer you, and I'm going to put them in the link underneath the video, again from WordPress. So exploit scanner. If you go to plugins, add new, you go across to exploit scanner, you'll be able to get this free plugin and you'll be able to run a check on your website, and it will check for any of the well-known exploits in a central database to make sure you're not infected with malicious scripts. Another great one to use to go in turn with that is called a theme authenticity checker, TA. If you just go into the plugins, add new in WordPress and type in TAC, this again is a very similar script which will enable you to be able to go through all of your website files that you have at the moment and check that they're not infected with malicious scripts. Great, so now that you know your website's clean and you've done that, is that you install some level of security. What I use on all of my sites, my client sites, my personal sites, is by a company called iThemes, and it's better WP Security. Now it's called iThemes Security, but I would recommend you install that. An alternative, if you don't like that, is WordFence, but make sure you install one of these plugins. Make sure you back up your website first, and then make sure that you whitelist your IP address so you don't lock yourself out, because it's embarrassing when that happens. Make sure you protect yourself. Once you're protected, make sure you go through, especially with iThemes Security, it gives you a nice little checklist of things to do. Do this, do this, do this. Simple things like make sure you're not using admin as your username. If I find a client is using admin as a username, there's no excuse anymore. There's just no excuse. I give them the opportunity. I give them the opportunity to change their website, and I tell them if they don't want to change their website, I'm personally going to hack into their website, because I think there is no excuse. It's just negligence now to have admin as a username in WordPress. We've had long enough to know that if you're using a WordPress website, admin is just not acceptable as a username. Neither is fluffy cat as a password, or your first name, or password 123. Put some security on your password to protect yourself. Okay, don't make it so easy just because it's convenient. Okay, a lot of the times we let go of security for convenience. Okay, and because things are convenient, we sometimes forget that it's important to make sure they're secure. Okay, a great idea, if you get stuck with passwords, this is a fantastic idea. Someone told me this once. Use the same password for everything. So make sure you have a nice, solid, secure uppercase, large mark, numbers, and letters. Okay, make sure you have that password, and then whatever you're using, make sure to take the first two letters of that program, put it in front of your password. For example, if you were going to use Facebook and your password, let's just say, for example, your password was password, you'd have FA password. If you were logging into Twitter, it'd be TW password. If you're logging into WordPress, it'd be WO password. So you get the idea. So use the first two letters of the program you're using with whatever your chosen password is. That way it's very easy for you to remember when you're logging into something, different password for whatever system. So if someone does get your password into every system, unless obviously they know what you're doing, but the chances of that happening are quite slim. Otherwise, you can use a system like LastPass, something that will collate all your passwords into one place. But just make sure that you're using strong passwords. It's really important to do that. So then you can go through and you can protect your website. If for any unfortunate reason you have been compromised, and this happened to one of my clients recently, in fact, it's happened to two of my clients, they did get compromised. It happens. As you know, the only reason an antivirus exists is because there was first a virus that needed the protection. So for an antivirus to first exist, there must be a virus. Otherwise, the antivirus has no purpose. So there will always be a virus before an antivirus, which means you always have the potential to get attacked before a cure can be put in place. Okay, this is why prevention is so much better than the cure, because I don't care how, this goes back to what I initially said, I don't care how much you try and protect yourself, there is always a potential. Dogs, if people like Sony, Google, Amazon, if these people are getting hacked, then you know we have to understand that there is always the potential for people to be hacked. All we can do is protect ourselves to the best of our ability and ensure we have backups in place. Okay, the backup is a fail-safe solution so that if it goes wrong, you can restore, and we can always do what we can in terms of stopping the little people from attacking us. The big people, if they want to get in, they'll get in. All right, I'm sorry to be the bringer of bad news, but you're not going to protect yourself. Certain on getting into your website, they will. All we can do is protect ourselves to the best of our ability. note on that, especially with when we consider looking at, I spoke about the plugin Better WP Security. We can enable file change. So we can use a system where if any files are changed on our website, we're alerted. This is a great way to monitor your website. So we've talked about how to have the prevention in place. So we've put the prevention in place to protect us now. So we've first put a level in place to check, and we've made sure we're clean. We've then put prevention in place. Now what we need to do is monitor, because to monitor your website, it will be aware if anything changes. Okay, don't just wait until you get a screen pop up that says you've been hacked. And that's only the nice people that do that. Okay, the real criminals are the ones that hack into your site and you don't even know. You could go 3, 6, 12 months and not even be aware that you've been hacked. So it's really important that when you are protecting your website, you monitor yourself to make sure that when you do think that happens to your website that's out of the ordinary, you're aware of it and you can then take action. And a company that I use, and I was just mentioning I have 2 clients that have been infected, a company that I use to protect myself if I've been hacked, to clean things up, is called Securi. Okay, so you've got a company called Securi which you can use. If you go online, you use Securi, you can have them they will go in and they will clean up your website for you. They will remove any malicious code and will make sure that you're protected. If you go over to Securi's website, Google Securi, at the bottom of the page you can use there's a free check they have. Type in your website name, you can actually do a check to make sure that you are clean and that you do not have any malware on your site. But I'd highly recommend, if you do have an infection, either contact myself, speak to an expert, or speak to these guys, because they are the best in the market. They are the when you talk about the authority of malware protection, Securi are the ones that do the cleanup. They're the ones that protect you to make sure that you're secure after an attack. So well worth bearing that in mind if you do have a problem. So that's pretty much it today. I mean, I know I've talked a lot about security side of things, but just to recap, make sure your computer is protected. Make sure you've got antivirus and firewall protection on your computer. That's point 1. Point 2, make sure you're not using a cheap hosting solution. And whatever you are using for a host, make sure you connect to it securely. Encrypt your connection to your server. Make sure that your server is protected. Okay, step 3, with your website, make sure, 1, that you clean or you check your website. The plugins that we mentioned before, you can use TAC or Exploit Scanner. Install yourself a plugin like Better WP Security, or now known as iTheme Security, so that you can adopt good practice to make sure that you have got the security in place to protect you, and then to ensure that you have monitoring in place to make sure that your site is monitored so that if anything changes, you're aware. Again, if you have been compromised, Securi is a great system to use to be able to remove that problem or that threat that you will have to your machine. Okay, great guys. So again, that's pretty much it today. I wanted to go over security because it's been a really big thing in the news and a lot of people seem to be getting attacked. I've had it on my servers. Brute force attacks is one of the biggest things that you're going to come across. And when you start off small, see, this is what I find with a lot of clients is when people start small and the only people that know about your website are a few friends and family, security is not too much of an option because no one knows you exist. But there's a lot of automated robots that scour the internet looking for vulnerabilities. And as soon as you start to get some exposure, when you start to market yourself, when you start to put your link out to your website, okay, it only takes one robot to catch onto that link and infect your machine. Okay, just make sure that you're protected, because the bigger you get, the more exposure you get, the more chance you ever getting attacked. All right, stay safe, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and hopefully I'll speak to you soon.